June the 28th, 2024. Guys, you're looking at the latest from the National Hurricane Center. This came out at basically 5 p.m. Eastern Time, about an hour and 20 minutes ago. We have this storm, 30% chance of development. It's going to move across the Yucatan, it looks like, and move into Mexico. You guys need the rain, so it's coming. Then here, the storm we watched last night, it's a 0% chance of formation in 2 days, but I'm not going to switch it to the 7-day forecast yet because there it will show it has a 30% chance of development. But in the next 48 hours, it is not going to develop. But after that, it does have a 30% chance. Here is trouble on the horizon, Tropical Depression number 2. It's only 5 miles per hour from being Tropical Storm Beryl. Right now, its maximum sustained winds are 30 knots or 35 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure 1,007 millibars. And then it's got the location. It's moving west at 15 knots or 17 miles per hour. This is going to be the problem right here, guys. I've pulled up the data on it. They're not giving you a lot of information here, but let me change this to the other forecast. Now, this is the 7-day forecast. Here, we've got a 30% chance of formation in 7 days. It says an area of low pressure over the western Caribbean Sea associated with a tropical wave continues to produce widespread shower and thunderstorm activity. Development of this disturbance is not expected today while it moves west-northwestward at 10 to 15 miles per hour. The disturbance is forecast to move westward over the Yucatan Peninsula and emerge over the Bay of Campeche late tomorrow or early Sunday morning, at which point some development would be possible. Regardless of development, heavy rainfall associated with this tropical wave will affect portions of Central America and Mexico through the weekend. Never, ever not give thanks to our Father in heaven for rain in the summertime, especially with heating that this planet is going through right now. Again, 30% chance of this one forming. And it could be even more than that, because if you have two of these together and you're dealing with the Saharan sand layer that's over this, which absorbs moisture out of the storms, then you've got an open path behind this storm here. But we've got a problem with number 2. And we're going to look at some of the data. They haven't put it into all the models yet or the projections, but the computers have printed out some data, and we're going to put a couple of locations on the map from there. Now, this is the forecast path, and we're going to look at some of the numbers to give you some idea of how strong it will be. Right now, tropical depression, very quickly, by the time it gets to 45 degrees west, it's going to be a tropical storm. By 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon, hurricane all the way through here up to Jamaica by 2 p.m. Wednesday. Now, guys, I'm really concerned about this. Couple reasons. It's going to be moving into very warm water, and, of course, El Nino is not there like we had the last 2 years. So I've got the data on all of these locations from right here to up to Wednesday, but I want to focus just on the last 2 days. On Tuesday, July the 2nd, right here, and on Wednesday, July the 3rd, as it's going into Jamaica. Now I know after looking at this, why the data changes here, because it's coming ashore Jamaica, and it slows down slightly. But what we're dealing with now in kilometers on Tuesday, and I'll translate that to miles per hour, is 90 to 110 kilometers. That translates to your peak at 126 miles per hour. That's your peak gust, but that puts you right in that Cat 3. Now, it shows it slowing down on Wednesday to 100 kilometers, which would put you at 115 mile per hour winds. Jamaica, are you listening? Here, simply because of its approach to the shore. Now, between here, where you're going to be dealing with Cat 3, and we don't know what else, because, again, the lack of wind shear and the increasing temperatures. We're at record heat in the Caribbean and the Atlantic and the Gulf. So, guys, again, going from here, again, make sure I'm reading this right here, 126 mile per hour gust, peak winds, to here, we're going to be dealing with 115 mile per hour gust. Again, Cat 2 hurricane with Cat 3 gust. So it's going to be very strong. I just wanted to go in there and look at the data for myself. And so, again, I'm sharing it with you. Let's look at some of the other information. Now, we've got the spaghetti models on two of these storms. The one setting here that's just east of the Yucatan Peninsula, still in the northwestern Caribbean. These are all the paths that are coming together right through here. Now, I have noticed that the CME stops its model right there. They haven't updated, and the Navy model has not chimed in on this yet. But again, Mexico City, some of these areas, I know you're going to have some floods, landslides in the mountains, depending on the amount of moisture, but try to save as much of that water as you can. The earth is not cooling off anytime soon. Now let's look at the latest, guys, from Fox down in Miami. We're very close on the numbers. They have the same data I do, and so they're saying by Tuesday at p.m. we're dealing with 105 mile per hour winds. Now my data shows that's correct on the bottom end. On the high end, we're dealing with 126 mile per hour winds. Then it slows down slightly because, again, to a Cat 1, it's interacting with the island of Cuba. But when you're dealing with 126 miles per hour winds, guys, a Cat 3 starts at 111 and goes to 129. At 130, you're in a Cat 4. Okay, so we're dealing with the data now at 126.57 technically on the upper level wind speeds at this point. So the Cat 3 gusts, you guys along the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, keep an eye on this because this path could actually go from the outer bands of the yellow to this one right here, guys. This is not the size of the storm, remember. It is the area that they are anticipating the path could choose. But what happens is they put in probably 20 or 30 models and then average it out right here. So before it gets to Jamaica, guys, this thing very well could be a Cat 3, maybe even before that. To pay attention to it, if it retains that strength in the heat of the ocean, if you kind of put those calculations in, we could have a Cat 4. Definitely a Cat 3, though. My notes as far as your upper level wind gusts, and those are the ones that count. Those are the ones that tear the roof off your home and things like that and throw your boat ashore. Let's check out the satellite images. Now, let's take a look at the northern hemisphere right now. Here is the storm in question. Let it cycle through, and I'm going to pause it right here. Right there. That's the one we're looking at, possible Cat 4 hurricane in its peak. We don't know what it will do when it gets into the Gulf. They're only going out to the island of Jamaica right here. Now, this storm is strengthening, and it may be a good thing that's going to come across the Yucatan and get right back ashore because it's so warm inside the Gulf. We haven't had much activity there. So if anything changes as far as the high pressure over the southern states here, along Texas from Florida, this thing could shift north, and it's very sizable. Let me play it forward, and notice that the high pressure is not as strong pushing into the Gulf of Mexico itself. Let's play it forward. And here's the one that I'm really concerned about. But right here, look at the size of this thing. Notice right here that, remember these storms in this area were pushing south. Remember I was showing you kind of a battle line in the water vapor loop of dry air. But right now, everything's pushing south. You do have, pushing north. Here across Mexico, you kind of got a east to a south wind going. So when this storm comes ashore here, if it does that, then that just adds to the chances of Mexico City getting some very much needed rain. Again, we're going to look at it closer than this, but before I change it, let's look at the infrared. Now, looking at this, guys, this is why I'm very concerned about our Atlantic storm. Look in the last few frames how dark the black section is and how large. What that indicates is the height of the clouds. You get black and then you get into a white right there. you're dealing with very high cloud tops, which indicates a very strong storm. Why? Because it's trying to get it up into the upper atmosphere. It's the way the planet cools itself. You get that heat off the oceans, you get it up where it's cold, and it comes back down as cool rain, and it drains the heat out of the oceans. It's a way that our Father in heaven designed the planet so it would not overheat. And so when you see these in the summer, if we didn't have them, it would be miserably hot and humid everywhere. The earth would start overheating very quickly as soon as you saw these storms stop. Notice here, about to come into the Bay of Campeche across the Yucatan. Nothing that we need to take our eyes off yet, but we are seeing more motion moving to the north. Check this out, Florida. You're getting some rain. I don't know how much you need in South Florida, but maybe looking at this, you guys in the Jacksonville area and south may be getting some of this. Now, I don't know how much rain you guys need up here just south of the Great Lakes, but you're getting some now. The rest of the nation is pretty dry. Mexico, along it looks like your higher mountains, you're getting some rain build up this afternoon. So that should drain down. Every little bit helps, guys. If I could speak Spanish, I would tell you to save every drop in every container you can, because the summer's not over, and I don't know how much help is coming your way or anybody's way under current conditions. Now, guys, let's check out Africa. Look, the sun is setting. That's what you're seeing there. And we've watched pretty much accurately the storms come off the coast of Africa. Some would dissipate, but the ones we were really focused on because they were so strong ashore, this is what we're seeing the results of now. Here is what's going to be, probably already is, Burl, maybe by the 8 p.m. update, but it's not going to be long. Category 1 is going to be drifting towards the Caribbean. Now, this storm right here is the second one behind future Burl right there. See that? And they're just going to continue. Let's go to infrared. Now, Bear's chugging along right here. Again, the last few frames, you see it strengthening, and it's already night there. And they go through these cycles. So tomorrow, when the sun's really over, which it will be noon there, quicker than it is here, they're probably 3 or 4 hours ahead of East Coast. At this point, I'm not exactly sure, but this thing's going to be chugging. Here's the other system, and what you start watching for, you see these outer bands, things like that, rotation in there. That's just telling you it's pulling in a lot of moisture and warm water into the core and strengthening it. Now, this one was strong. We saw it last night. More than likely, there's, again, 30% chance of development. They're watching it. This one right here is not as strong as what we've seen. Now, the hurricanes will go in these cycles, even through the hurricane season itself, have a couple weeks and they're strong, and then they kind of lay back a little bit, and we start seeing activity come off the African coast, and we go back into that oscillation or that cycle. Now let's take a look at the satellite that's focused over the Gulf of Mexico itself. Florida, you're getting a lot of rain, and again, I can't emphasize save every drop. I know South Florida and up into Central Florida really got inundated during our first tropical wave of the season. Right here is a different story, guys. They're getting a lot of energy built up. It's starting to fill the warmer waters of the Gulf. And the reason it's like that is because the Atlantic mixes very well with the Caribbean, but not that well with the Gulf, because while the Gulf Stream, when it circulates correctly, it goes wide. But right now, remember the other day, it's coming right in here and going back out. So the Gulf is kind of like a bathtub, even though it gets very deep in the center, and you just have it all trapped right in that area. Let's go to infrared a moment. And guys, it's kind of scary when you realize how many people are drowning on the Florida beaches inside the Gulf this year, and it's because of the turbulence. The rip currents are stronger. Every aspect of our weather, whether it's rain, snow, hailstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes, rip currents, whatever it is increasing rapidly. But guys, I cannot overemphasize the saving water, every drop. And I don't speak Spanish. I wish I did, but we have a lot of friends down in South Florida. I watch a lot of your YouTube videos, by the way, that do speak Spanish. So put in the comments in Spanish, and about any of this information, at least save every drop of water because it's going to be critical. Again, you remember the heat last year? No rain, all the crops are dying. I'll never forget it, and I'm just hoping this year does not get that bad. And the only way it will not be as bad is if we keep getting some storms. Remember, we had a high pressure dome over the southeast and it was miserable. I've got pictures, and I've got two weather stations to compare against each other, just the portable ones, nothing fancy. But I have a monitor inside, and I was taking pictures of over 130 degrees heat index in real field. Think about that. And it was terrible. I mean, you were just fighting to survive, especially if you had animals that needed way more help than, but you need a water filter. We have the best. It's not an ad, but we have the best with the Alexa Pure. Go to bpearthwatch.com and check it out. And when you click there, notice without a credit check, they're going to spread your payments over about 5 months. So it's not that bad. Now, right now, they're not on sale. They have been down to $199, $179. I think they're back up. But they're coming with that filter, and I get about 5,000 gallons out of my filter because I keep it clean. So that if you don't get the rain, a creek or a river or anything else, it's not going to work in the ocean because of the salt water. But any other source that you could get, at least then you go through the best filter in the world. It's just gravity fed, sits on your counter. Really neat, guys. That's the only thing we use for ice, for cooking water, tea, coffee, anything. The dogs, their water comes out of there. So, and what happens is we're way out in the country, and it's a rural water tank that services a few hundred people, and they chlorinate it pretty heavily. And you can tell it when it comes out of the tap, but when it comes out of our water filters, it tastes like fresh spring water. Everyone that has, in these comments, that has one of these will tell you that. But that's not the important part. The important part is that you will have some way to drink water. The rule is 3 days without water, you're getting in trouble. Your organs will start shutting down. 3 weeks without food. And I think it's 3 minutes if you're get in a flood in very cold water. They break it down pretty good, like 3, 3, and 3 there. But 3 days without water, your organs need that moisture to continue to operate. That's why they see these people in the desert dead, dying, because without that, each organ just starts clicking off. I think your brain and the heart are the last two. But what are you going to do at that point? Water. That's the thing that everything on this planet survives from. So plan for that. Now, while we're at this, and I'm going to end it here, guys, you're noticing moisture coming off of Florida. This way, the winds are pushing this way now. That's a fine indicator of the complete end of El Nino and coming out of that neutral zone into La Nina. So you're going to feed moisture, but that will help push this storm further to the west. Guys, we're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.